Here we are at episode 4 of Toni and Dr Bruce. On this show, we're discussing karma from past lives. So karma, in my view, is misinterpreted. Many people come seeking absolution from past life deeds, and some believe that their life is a struggle now because they were bad in another lifetime. But I don't see karma as payback for what we've done before or what we'll do in the future. In the context of past lives and reincarnation, it's merely a way to experience every side of an experience or both sides of a coin. There's an old saying, karma is like a rubber band. You can only stretch it so far until it comes back and hits you in the face. Ouch. Like most old sayings, the above quote has a grain of truth in it, but only a grain, because karma is a vastly complicated subject with many nuances and various interpretations. So what we are about to discuss is an interpretation. Take from it what you will. Over to you, Dr. Bruce.
Thank you, Toni. Karma means action. It's the principle of cause and effect. Taken simply, it means that there is a consequence. Say bad words in front of your parents, and I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, I got my mouth washed out with soap. If you drive your car 80 miles an hour in a 55 mile per hour zone while thumbing your nose at the cop that you just passed, well, you're going to get a ticket.
Yeah.
Nothing really magical, mystical, even very spiritual about that. Now, remember back in high school physics class, the Newton's third law of motion. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. However, karma is not what many people think it is. Occurrences from and deeds from past lives are neither, in my view, unequivocally ordained, nor do they have an unequivocal consequence. A deterministic, preordained view where A always results in consequence B, or karma consequence B, does not seem to be the case. For example, some would think that if soul A murders soul B in one lifetime, then in a later lifetime, soul B is going to murder soul A. But karma is not about cosmic justice or divine retribution. Now, in that above example, being cited for driving 80 miles per hour in a 55 mile per hour zone will result in a fine, but in the traffic court of karma, there are no such rigidly defined consequences. Back to you, Toni.
Yeah. Ooh, I like your little traffic analogies here.
I use miles per hour.
Traffic court of karma. Okay. Well, I guess contrary to the deterministic interpretation of karma held by some, from a spiritual perspective, there's no need for cosmic justice because there is no such thing as cosmic injustice. And karma is more about entanglement. If I do something in my physical life that violates you, we become entangled. And we both feel the lack of equilibrium between us. It's like we have become tied together by a rope. And the only way to restore equilibrium is to undo the entanglement. So by having you violate me in a similar way. That way, we both know from experience what it's like to be both the violator and the violated. So, as Hans Tamdun, author of Exploring Reincarnation and a noted researcher in this field, puts it in this way, quote, "We can also discard the view that actual deeds, regardless of the intent, determines karma. Our psychological reaction determines what we take with us to a next life. After all, our soul is what goes from one life to the next, and psychic reactions are semantic. That is, the effect of an experience is never direct, but always depends upon our interpretation." What say you, Dr. Bruce?
I say that all other ideas about karma seem to be more or less true. There is jurisdiction to the extent that we ourselves alone or with others judge our past lives, and we and they sit in judgment on our mortal selves. A higher court of law is superfluous. People only appear in front of Moses or God or Allah when they create such a thing. Now, while there are many aspects of karma, and theorists and researchers in the field don't necessarily that they don't agree on. There does seem to be some general agreement that what's been put into motion in the past has effects in the present. Karma, however, is very subtle, and it's also complex. Thoughts and attitudes can create karma just as strongly as can tangible deeds and actions. Now, the famous American psychic Edgar Cayce, who was considered by many to be the father and the true founder of the New Age movement, and he's a principal source of its most fundamental beliefs, had this to say about the subject, and I quote, "Whatever we think, that thought makes an impression on the universal consciousness. Nothing is lost or done in secret. Everything is done within the universal consciousness, and the whole is affected by it, as well as all others within the whole. Reactions to past thoughts and actions become our destiny and our karma. Our destiny is simply the rebounding effects of previous choices remembered by the soul." Toni?
Yeah. So what we set in motion in a past life might influence our current life, either physically, emotionally, mentally, financially, or spiritually. And what we set in motion now and our motivation might influence our future lives. Karma is the conditions our soul needs in order to grow spiritually. It's what we create for ourselves. So this cause may be a desire, thought, a feeling, emotion, a vow, a promise, a decision, or a traumatic experience, among others. There's other options as well. But very often at the moment of trauma, a section of our consciousness detaches itself and it remains stuck, for want of a better description. And past life causes can manifest as a phobia or chronic illness or body state, an addiction, mental disorder, relationship problems, sexual dysfunctions, inexplicable attraction or aversion to someone and recurring nightmares, financial challenges, or a simple sense of unease.
Past life therapy teaches us that the conditions that we encounter in our present life aren't simply a punishment for bad karma. We've heard that word.
Yeah.
Bad karma. Well, it may well be that we're inflicting misery on ourselves as a way of absolving our guilt from the past. It shows us that as spiritual beings, we're part of a lives-long process, not a lifelong process, a lifelong process. We may need to experience what we construe from the limited perspective of our current life as an awful life in order to balance our other experiences or to round out our compassion and empathy for other people. It shows us the long, intricate strands of our relationships, weaving their way through many roles and interactions over dozens or maybe hundreds of lifetimes.
Mm-hmm.
It can also teach us that the people we think hate us most, in fact, love us enough to put us through hell. Not because we deserve it or as punishment, but because we have chosen to learn that particular lesson, to have the necessary experiences, Toni likes to call it.
Yeah. Yeah, I like experience over lesson. They're just words though, aren't they? Yeah, so interesting. We can talk about all of these different aspects in other shows, but you know what? That being said, it also places responsibility back on us to understand that not all of life's experiences and occurrences are necessarily attributable to past life karma. They're so not. And things can occur as a result of pure happenstance or not as the result of some vast and mysterious karmic pattern. As Sigmund Freud, the father of psychoanalysis, was reputed to have said is, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. Well, researchers put forward a number of what are called karmic repercussions. A karmic repercussion can be defined as a consequence or an effect of an event or situation in a past life that's influencing the present life. However, this plethora of repercussions can essentially be reduced to two fundamental ones: traumas and hangovers. Let's look at them, Dr. Bruce.
That's Toni. Now, traumas are unhealed wounds left by a terrible experience of physical or emotional pain. The repercussions of traumatic experiences reveal themselves in psychosomatic complaints, phobias, compulsions, obsessions. An excellent example of that is the client I mentioned in last week's show. That he was the Colorado fur trapper in a former life, and he suffered from back pain, and he also suffered from paranoia to the extent that he was mistrustful of people. And in his words, he was always looking behind him. Mm-hmm. He experienced a slow and an agonizing death after being tomahawked in the back by a renegade Indian. Now, the most traumatic experience is that of being slowly tortured to death, or watching someone who you love being tortured to death. Now, less terrible traumatic experiences might be frightful and painful deaths, such as being attacked by a wild animal, dying in combat, violent accidents. The other horrors might be the sudden loss of a family member, a spouse who dies in flames, a child hit by a car, a sister who's sold into slavery. Some more recurring traumas and past life regressions are, I've seen this, witches and heretics being tortured and displayed, and concentration camp experiences. Now, that's a wonderful example.
Yeah. I think these examples that you're giving are things that we can go into because we'll have seen various outcomes and symptoms that derive from some of the things you're talking about there. Concentration camp experiences, for example, but some other time. I guess a trauma's power derives from the energy of the suppressed negative experience. Pain, horror, fear, hatred, disgust, despair. Traumas might lend a horrible and sometimes frightful taste to what might otherwise be tolerable situations when these situations show similarities to the original trauma. For instance, if Dr. Mengele, did I pronounce his name right? Anyway, Hitler's angel of death, as he was called, or some other demented Nazi doctor tortured you as part of some diabolical medical experiment in a past life, then in this life, a physician performing a routine medical exam in his office might scare you half to death. And if someone maybe sees a house burning down and loses control because they unconsciously remember a fire in a past life in which they died, together with other people, then the shadow of this horrible experience could loom up on them. And even if there's nobody in the house burning in the house in this lifetime, it just triggers a memory.
Now, the second type of karmic repercussion is called hangovers. And when I say hangovers, I would caution my viewers that I'm not referring to the hangovers that Toni has when she has a bit too much wine. Well,
it's bubbles.
What she delightfully calls bubbles.
Yeah.
What I'm referring to here are repercussions of entire lives. They're essentially a past life undigested as the result of things like loneliness, boredom, hopelessness, meaninglessness, poverty, oppression, despair, jealousy, and so on. For example, during a past life regression, a woman finds herself as a female in an 18th century South America in an isolated hacienda. Now, looking back on this life, the overriding impression is one of bareness. Courtyard is bare, the surroundings are bare, houses are bare, her whole life is bare. The one overpowering feeling is of bareness, dullness, stuffiness, shallowness, emptiness. It's a suffocating blanket that covers the entire life. Now, people who have had these existences often suffer from what we call inappropriate and prevailing postulates, ingrained assumptions, negative paradigms. These experiences lead to general feelings about life. You'll hear everything is dangerous. You're never safe. Life sucks. You can't win no matter how hard you try. Hangovers can be identified by the recurrent use of sentences with words like always, never, nobody, everybody. Toni.
Yeah, right. It's really interesting. They these words and things also seem to assimilate with what I call emotional bruises. But I won't get distracted with them either, but it's the same type of thing. It all seems to fit in. Anyway, for another example or something more for us to discuss, a woman who constantly finds herself in one abusive relationship after another might have led an existence as someone who was forced into a life of prostitution and feels she's unworthy of genuine love and affection. And her prevailing view might be, nobody will ever love me for who I am, or I don't deserve to be loved. And hangovers and the views they bring with them into current lifetimes, whatever they may be, are suffocating and paralyzing energy gluttons. They're wet blankets, they're dark fogs, and they make life somber and unpleasant. And they keep people stuck in despair and failure and feeling hopeless. The other side of hangovers is the boomerang effect. Aussie, hey? But this is when present life expresses itself as an opposite of the past one. And this is often the case with karmic debt. And this would be where Adolf Hitler would be reincarnated as a Jew living in the Gaza Strip. Or a miserly and cruel millionaire might reincarnate as a penniless, homeless man. Or a man who was Don Juan in a past life, constantly unfaithful to his wife, might reincarnate as a man or woman who's drawn to lovers who continually cheat on them.
Good point, Toni. See, our physical existence can be thought of as a school. That's exactly what it is. However, unlike the schools that we're familiar with, we don't fail our tests in the school of karma. Because even if we perceive something as failure, it's all meant to occur for our greater soul growth. Mm-hmm. Being human again and again with a different body and different life circumstances, each time enables the soul to experience the full range of possible perspectives and relationships and all the lessons that these entail and all the lessons that are meant to be learned throughout lifetimes. Through many different human experiences, the soul gradually becomes more self-aware, gradually discovers more of its true capabilities, and it gradually learns how to overcome the illusory limitations of being physical.
Yeah, indeed. And each human lifetime is an opportunity to learn specific lessons. One lifetime, for example, might focus on learning greater self-responsibility, while the next might focus on being more empathetic to others. And in one lifetime, the soul experiences being a wealthy individual who wields power over others, for instance. It would be then of value to contrast that with an experience of living in poverty and powerlessness. So the soul has no preference for one side of the equation or the other, since both sides help draw out different aspects of the soul or of the experience. What do you think?
Good point, Toni. In my opinion, one of the most poignant and eloquent explanations of karma was offered by Deepak Chopra in his book called The Book of Secrets, Unlocking the Hidden Dimensions of Your Life. And in that book, he said, and I quote, "Situations seem to happen to people, but in reality, they unfold from deeper karmic causes. The universe unfolds to itself, bringing to bear any cause that needs to be included. But don't take this process personally. The working out of cause and effect is eternal. You are part of this rising and falling that never ends. And only by riding the wave can you ensure that the waves don't drown you. The ego takes everything personally, leaving no room for higher guidance or purpose. If you can, realize that a cosmic plan is unfolding and appreciate the incredibly woven tapestry for what it is, a design of unparalleled marvel."
Deepak said that well, didn't he?
He certainly did. He kind of hit the nail on the head with that one.
Yeah, that's good. Well, in the next show, we're covering choosing our life before birth. Woohoo! I like that. We'll be in between.
Toni knows an awful lot about that. That's going to be a good one.
Oh, I love talking about that. So You've been watching Toni and Dr. Bruce, where we discuss all matters related to reincarnation and past life regression. And if you've enjoyed the show, then please invite your friends to tune in. We've been here before and we'll be here again.
As a matter of fact, we'll be here next week.
And we hope you will be too.
See ya.
See ya.